let's talk about quartiles. So the last video dealt with box and whisker plots where we actually talked about what quartiles are. Quick review, quartiles are values that divide a list of number into quarters. So remember that box and whisker plot was divided into 4 chunks, and each chunk represented 25% of the data. All right, so quartiles divide a list of numbers into quarters. All right, so let's look at some data. We've got Katie's hits, so Katie plays softball or baseball, and we have 9 games. She has a game where she has 0 hits, 3 games where she has 1 hit, 3 games where she gets 2 hits each, a game where she has 3 hits, and a game where she has 5 hits. Now, to find the quartiles, or to break this into quarters, all right, the first thing we need to do is find the median. So step 1, find the median. And if you're doing these on IXL, I strongly recommend having some paper to do these questions with. All right. So finding the median is just the middle. So we have 9 terms here. So my middle term is going to be the 5th term. It's going to be this first 2. And I know that's the median because there's 4 terms on both sides. All right. So remember, the median is the middle. So our median is 2. It separates our data into 2 halves. All right, 50% of the time she gets 2 or fewer hits. 50% of the time she gets 2 or more hits. All right, so it separates our data into 2 halves. Now to find the quartiles, to break this up into 4 chunks, because really right now we have, if I were to kind of draw a dash through that too, I've got 50% above, or 50% all the way to 5. This represents 50%, and then going this way represents the other 50% of the data. So to get quartiles, I need to break it up again. All right, so let's do step 2. Let's deal with the lower quartile, or quartile 1. And to find the lower quartile, you take the median below the median. So really what I need to do is I need to find the middle of all the values less than my median. So I'm going to look at these 4 terms here, 0, 1, 1, and 1. And I need to find the median of these terms. So really I'm finding the median below the median. This is weird. So I look at the 4 terms below the median, and I need to find the middle of those terms. Well, the middle of these terms actually falls between 1 and 1. All right, so I'm going to draw a line here just so you guys can see. So there's my median below the median. This is called my lower quartile. And if your lower quartile falls between 2 numbers like it does here, you just take the average of those 2 numbers. Now taking the average between 1 and 1 is easy because they're the same number. So our lower quartile in this case is 1. I'll write a 1 there if you guys can see it. Alright, so this broke it into 2 quarters, so I've got 25% of my data falling in this range. And then I have 25% of the data falling between this range. Alright, so my lower quartile is 1. Alright, I've got 2 chunks of 25% here. Now I need to find the upper quartile, so that's step 3. Upper quartile. And it's the same thing as finding the lower quartile, except we are going to find the median above the median. That sounds weird again. Median above the median. All right, so what I mean by that is you look at the terms that are above our median, so our middle term is 2. So I'm looking at these 4 terms, 2, 2, 3, and 5, and I need to find the middle of those terms, which happens to fall between 2 and 3. I'm going to draw a line here so we can see. This is my upper quartile. And now since it falls between two numbers, 2 and 3, I need to take the average, or the middle. All right, and the middle between 2 and 3 is 2.5. So my upper quartile is 2.5. And I just broke it into 2 quarters, all right? I've got this chunk that represents 25%, and I've got this chunk that represents 25%. All right, so we've effectively broken our data into 4 quarters. All right, so between 0 and 1, our lower quartile, we have 25%. Between 1 and 2, we have 25%. Between 2 and 2.5, we have 25%. And between 2.5 and 5, we have another 25%. So really what we could say, for instance, I could say that 75% of the time, Katie gets between 0 and 2.5 hits. All right, so I just added these quarters together. All right, so 75% of the time, she gets between 0 and 2.5 hits. I could say that 25% of the time, I could just look at this upper quartile and beyond, I could say 25% of the time, Katie gets between 2.5 and 5 hits. I could say 50% of the time, I could look between my lower quartile and my upper quartile, which is my inner quartile range from the box and whisker plot. I could say 50% of the time, she gets between 1 and 2.5 hits. All right, so we could play around with these percentages to find different values. So if you guys have any questions on this, feel free to send me a message.